What we'll try and do on the political stock exchange for Maharashtra is to get a sense through the C-voter tracker data, the level of happiness or unhappiness that voters express when they rate the performance of the current government. I want to also welcome our guests joining us for this broadcast, starting with my colleague, our managing editor for Maharashtra, Sahil Joshi. With us also on this broadcast is Dr. Manisha Priyam. Sanjay Jha joins us, Rajat Sethi joins us, and we have Yashwant Deshmukh. So I'll take question number one. Are you angry with the state government led by the Shiv Sena BJP alliance, and do you want to change it? Now, the framing of this question is interesting because it asks voters and respondents to talk about anger. And anger will reflect a strong desire to change or not change. So let me take you through the responses to this question. And we look first at the pan-Maharashtra figures, right? So when this question was asked across the state, 51% said they are angry and they want change. That's a very clear indicator, which came from 51% of the respondents in this sample. 41% said they are not angry and they don't want change, so a 10% gap there. This one becomes significant because 51% saying they are angry and they want change. It's not a specific question about voting intention, but if you're angry and you want change, it gives you a sense of how respondents in the sample looked at this question. What we'll do next is to break this question into the different regions of Maharashtra. Remember, Maharashtra is not one state. It's the combination of 6 different regions that make up the bigger picture for Maharashtra. And in this, let's now take you through how different regions view this question. So the level of anger is highest according to our poll in Western Maharashtra. Then came Northern Maharashtra. The level of anger high also in Marathwada. Then in Vidarbha. The level of anger lowest in Konkan relative to the other regions of Maharashtra. So this is on the question of anger. Then where are people relatively more agreeable to the way this government is going? Not angry, don't want change. 36% in Western Maharashtra, 40% in Northern Maharashtra, 43% in Vidarbha, and so on. So clearly the level of anger highest in Western Maharashtra, followed by Marathwada, and then Northern Maharashtra. That's the first data set that we have. I want to come to the next question on our screen now, and once again I'll take the pan-Maharashtra figures and then we'll break this by region. How do you rate the development work done by this state government? Here, 53% say good, 23% are saying poor, 22% are saying average. This is the pan-Maharashtra figure. So a bit of confusion there. They were angry, 51% they wanted change, but 53% are also saying that the development work done by the state government is good. Let's now break this question up into the different regions of Maharashtra. When the same question is asked to the different regions, so the level of happiness with the performance of the Maharashtra government seems to be highest in Vidarbha at 56%, followed by Marathwada at 54%, and then Konkan and North Maharashtra. The level of unhappiness with the state government, poor, not average but poor, highest in Marathwada, followed by Konkan, and followed by Western Maharashtra. Now, if I completely disassociated any of my own opinion from this data and just looked at the data itself, it would suggest that the voters in Maharashtra seem quite confused. 51% saying they're angry and they want to change the state government, and yet at the same time 52.5% saying that they think that the government has actually done a good job. Manisha Priyam, you're a political analyst, you do a lot of quantitative data work yourself. When you look at these contradictory impulses, people saying they're angry and they want to stay in the state government, but kaam acha kiya hai, 52.5. If you were to study this data and arrive at some conclusion, what would that conclusion be?
That conclusion will be that this is inconclusive data about voter mood. They are clearly conflicted. Sometimes when you have an outer veneer, lots of things are being said against the government, then you want to be on that side also. But when you pin them down on actual performance, then they have to concede. Now this really shows that there is a situation where there is a mind that wants to be with the voice that says, oh, we are conflicted and we think we want a change. But, when you ask them that, okay, has development happened, which should largely, by and large, mean that have the goods of development or has public service provisioning improved or have you received it? They are unable to say, no, we are really angry and we've not received this. So how strong is that data? I mean, that data is really telling you that on the performance itself, the basic premises of anti-incumbency do not seem to be that robust. So if the angers are there, they may be for reasons and grounds other than non-performance or welfare goods not reaching people.
That's a very important point that Manisha Priya makes, that there may seem to be anger in the data, but that anger doesn't have to do with the work the state government has done. It could have to do with other factors. For example, there have been parties that have been split, alliances that have been built. The Maharashtra Lok Sabha results tended to suggest that voters weren't very happy with that. Rajat Sethi, you do some polling yourself. Does this alarm you that 51% of the respondents say they're angry and they want change? Now, if I were to look at that data, and if you were looking at the data from a BJP perspective, you say, oh boy, that's a very high level of anger there.
See, I sort of agree and sort of disagree with the interpretation at times. When you ask a leading question, and a leading question, enters into a realm wherein you will see respondents answering to you what you would want to hear. So, how the question is framed, and Yashwantji will be able to do a better job explaining how this question was asked to the respondents. But if this is the anger, if we take it at the face value, BJP will certainly have to go out and convince the masses that, they have done enough. They have delivered on multiple levels. The development work, which was totally stalled under the Aghadi, they have been able to kickstart and do that work. And that has only been possible because you have a government which has the right intentions to do development.
Sahil, does this correspond with what you're picking up from across the state? That people seem happy with the development work done by the state government, 52.5% saying it's been good, and yet there is anger and a desire for change. Those two contradictory impulses playing out together in the battlefield of Maharashtra.
Well, Rahul, development as a concept is very relative for any kind of a voter. It's kind of a continuous process, and it doesn't change much from government to government, because if there is a metro construction going on, it will not happen anymore now that a new government will stop the complete metro work and will not do the metro work at all. Or if there is a big highway like Samruddhi Expressway is being built by an earlier government, it won't happen like this, that the way it happened in Andhra Pradesh, that suddenly they stopped the work of a new capital, Amravati. That is not going to happen in Maharashtra. That they know. I mean, even earlier, 1995, the Mumbai-Pune Expressway, the work started by the Shiv Sena BJP government, continued by the Congress NCP government, which came in 1999. So its development is a very relative and continuous process. Now, the anger which is coming up, which I could definitely see, is that even I was looking at the data, region-wise, everybody is reacting in a different way. And that clearly shows that the fight in Maharashtra is going to be different at different levels and different regions as well. So there has to be some kind of a local reason. Say, for an example, if you're going to Nasik, the farmers, the onion producers are not happy with the way the government stopped the export of the onion at the crucial time when they were actually needing it, and that's why they're angry. They're saying, okay, there is a good development, but yes, I don't want this government. Or maybe if you go to Marathwada and some part of Vidarbha, the soybean farmers may say that we are not getting the expected price what we were looking at, and they express their anger in Lok Sabha. The Maratha community who wants to be part of OBC actually, to get the Kunbi certificates in OBC, they are saying that the government has promised us, and specifically BJP may not be happy with that. And some people, as Manisha Priyam was expressing, may be not happy with the way the politics suddenly changed in Maharashtra. The parties were broken. But at the same time, it also shows one thing very clearly. I mean, what we are picking up from down is that every party has a chance at this point of time. It's not something that people have decided their mind.
You make an important point. I want to put that to Sanjay Jha. If we were to look at this from the lens of the Mahavikas Aghadi, 51% wanting change suggests that there is a desire for change, but just a little bit more than the majority mark. If this was, say, late 60s, early 70s, you would say the MVA is comfortably placed. If it's just 51%, then it comes down to who's able to mobilize his voters, run a better campaign, get their supporters out on polling day. And as Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh and Haryana have shown, when it comes to that element of the election process, the BJP and the Mahayuti would believe that they have the advantage, that this level of anti-incumbency they can deal with and pull more voters out on polling day.
Well, Rahul, I'm not surprised that, we are finding that the data is in conflict or is confounding. Simply because there are compelling social economic factors that help a voter decide which party to vote for or which alliance to support. On the other hand, there are many psychological, emotional, all kinds of sentimental factors that also come into play. Now, if you look at the CSDS surveys, I was looking at their data because a lot of people trust the credibility of that information. If you look at their principal 4-5 factors, unemployment at 24%, inflation at 22%, and then you have agriculture, infrastructure, and development. Between these 5, they say that 70% of the issues that are bothering the people are therefore related to the economic existence that they go through on a day-to-day basis.
But the same was the case in Haryana, where the level of anti-incumbency and unhappiness was the government was even higher than what we're seeing in the data for Maharashtra, and yet you lost.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, here is the point, which is why I'm coming down to what I believe is going to be the subterranean factors that a lot of people are not going to express unless you ask them, which is, are people in Maharashtra, particularly those people who have been part of the erstwhile Shiv Sena, how they're reacting to the entire process by which the Uddhav Shiv Sena was really, frankly speaking, knocked out, the way they were, truncated, and the entire Operation Kamal. Is that a hurt that a lot of people believe is the reason why Aditya Thackeray is going to town talking about the Gaddari of the Shinde Shiv Sena?
Okay.
The other factor is going to be a very critical play, is going to be about the shifting of businesses from Mumbai and different parts of Maharashtra to Gujarat, where...
So those are the issues you want to raise. Are those
momentum.
issues that viewers and respondents in the survey think are important to them? Let's take that. What is the most important issue for you? When this question was asked, I'll show you the pan Maharashtra data first, and then we'll break it up into regions. When this question was asked, as is often the case, unemployment came up on top, 25%. But remember, unemployment per se doesn't suggest which party is likely to get the vote, because unemployment is oftentimes one of the key issues along with inflation. Here, interestingly, inflation comes in at number 3 at 15%. Farmer issues comes in at 19%. Now, that is significant that farmer issues typically don't fare so high up. Road, power, water comes in at 12%. Corruption, which the Mahavikas Aghadi tries to project as a big issue, actually comes in at only 3%. So that's the sense of the most important issue. Unemployment at number 1, inflation at 2, Vikas, roads, power, water at 12%, farmer issues at 19%. Now let's break this up into regions. And this is where the regional dimension of the Maharashtra elections comes out fully. So unemployment is the biggest issue in Bombay. 33% of the respondents in the Bombay region, think unemployment is the number 1 issue, because also the most urbanized part of the state. For them, unemployment is the number 1 issue. Then when I come to issues like farmer issues, those are highest in the northern part of Maharashtra, 27%. Those are high also in Marathwada, 25%. Those are high in Vidarbha at 24%. So naturally, the more agrarian regions of Maharashtra feeling agrarian distress the most, and thinking of that as being their number 1 issue, because farmer issues are number 1 in North Maharashtra, they're number 1 in Marathwada, they are number 2 in Vidarbha, where unemployment was at 32%. Corruption, interestingly, low in virtually all the regions when it comes to whether it's the number 1 issue. Even if the government is indulging in corruption, it doesn't really in Maharashtra seem to matter to the voters in these regions, not at least as their number 1 issue. Inflation is the second most important issue in the Bombay region. It's important also in Konkan, not so important in the more agrarian regions of Marathwada, North and Vidarbha. Now this typically is along predictable lines in the more urbanized pockets, inflation, unemployment mattering the most in the more agrarian, regional, rural pockets like Marathwada, Northern Maharashtra and Vidarbha, farmer issues mattering the most. So let me just get a sense starting with Sahil. Farmer issues mattering so much in Marathwada, in Vidarbha, in Northern Maharashtra. That's quite along predictable lines because those are the regions which have felt the brunt of agrarian distress the most, Sahil.
Yes, of course. And that is the reason why what we are seeing today is that the government has to announce schemes like Ladli Behna, which is catering to more of the rural masses. Of course, I mean, the urban, it is even hit in the urban sector as well. But that clearly shows that there is a rural distress. And because of the scheme, the 1,500 rupees going to a poor families, women, that is affecting the farmers more because now they are not available to do a job in the farms, and that is what we are hearing from Marathwada or Northern Maharashtra, even in some part of the Vidarbha region. Now, why there is an agrarian crisis is basically because unlike Western Maharashtra, the farmers in Marathwada region are a very low land holding farmers, and that is the reason why they are upset about their financial condition, not getting any help from the subsequent governments, and that is the reason why this issue of reservation is on the rise. Most of the agitations are happening from the regions like Marathwada, and that is where what we are seeing the problem at this point of time. So obviously the rural distress is one of the main reason why the government is going for schemes like Ladli Behna or direct transfer schemes, the free cylinder schemes and all that stuff.
Manisha Prem, how does the number one issue in Maharashtra correlate to your experience in field research in different parts of the country? Unemployment, corruption, unemployment, inflation are typically the 1 and 2 issues in most states. Here, farmer distress also seems to be one of the critical issues for voters.
Yeah, I mean, undoubtedly, farmer distress has been a very, very important issue here. Remember, Maharashtra is a state of interesting contrasts. It's also the place where the country's and indeed now the world's most richest stay. Mumbai is a city of dreams, etc. Finds a name in the world's metropolises, but ensconced within Maharashtra are agrarian regions where you've seen the brunt of what has happened, the failures in agriculture, issues of climate change and distress, lack of rainwater, near drought-like situations. And these are kind of compounded by the fact that the poor from amongst the rural areas find no avenues to do any form of urban mobility except do seasonal migration. Now, in sugarcane, for example, those who know Maharashtra know very well that labor goes out in what is known as goita. Goita means the couple goes out and migrates, leaving children behind. Now, what manner of family that must be, that you have to really dump your own young ones to the care of others and sometimes leave them to great vulnerability to be able to go out and earn a basic living for 3 or 4 or 5 months. So really simply, rural economy is stuck badly, no opportunity to be able to generate any cash, basically just food level subsistence, and almost no avenues for social mobility from rural into urban areas for any kind of urban jobs, just labor. So I think that stuckedness of the rural you see in its most distressful forms in large parts of Maharashtra.
Sure.
Across 2 of its regions, you definitely see it. It takes the form of asking for reservations here or there, but the real issue here is whether agriculture itself can be addressed or not, and whether rural life itself can become the village Swaraj that Gandhi once penned down with the help of small Maharajas from Marathwada and other areas. So whether that Swaraj can come around or not, that remains the mirage because of which rural India remains, and Maharashtra in particular, remains a very distressful scenario.
I want to come to the next question, which is to do with who voters want as the next Chief Minister of Maharashtra. And I'll take the pan Maharashtra numbers first, and then we'll go region-wise, because a lot of variation seen in the responses from different regions. Who do people want as the number one chief minister? Eknath Shinde comes in right at the top at 28%. He also has recency working in his favor, recall because he's the incumbent, so he's at 28. Devendra Fadnavis, interestingly, is only at 11%. Now, he's a deputy CM at the moment, but one would have expected him to be higher. Only 11% of the respondents want him. Shinde's popularity is more than twice that of Devendra Fadnavis. Uddhav Thackeray comes in at 223%, Ajit Pawar at 3%, Sharad Pawar only at 6%, and Aditya Thackeray at 1%. Rajat Sethi, what's your reading of this? Eknath Shinde at 28%. In one way logical because he's the incumbent. Devendra Fadnavis, if he was far ahead of Eknath Shinde in this data, he could have built a post-result case. If the verdict came in favor of the Mahayuti, he could have said, well, actually, I'm more popular. But this data seems to suggest, from the Mahayuti's perspective, voters like the current batting lineup.
I think, Rahul, if you were to see this data, there is recency bias. So you will see Eknath Shinde as a sitting chief minister having those numbers. But I don't think if Yuti comes to power, they're going to just stick by these numbers in terms of deciding who their chief minister would be. There'll be a lot of calculations, switching of possible loyalties and multiple such equations which might unfold post the elections. I think one more important data point that I see from this is that Uddhav Thackeray is clearly the tallest leader which is emerging from the Aghadi. There has been a lot of confusion wherein Congress leaders were also staking claim to the CM chair in the run-up to the elections. And you see there is no Congress leader virtually in any of these 6-7 names that are presented here. So it seems like even Aghadi, in spite of the fact that they do not have consensus around leadership, Uddhav Thackeray, again, maybe because he served as the chief minister, he seems to be leading the pack over there.
So the only name that shows up from the Congress is that of Bala Sahib Thorat at 1.5%. You know, the Congress wanted that they keep chief ministership for them. But frankly, apart from Uddhav Thackeray, if you go by the data, Sanjay Jha, you have nobody in the Congress fold who can actually be put up. If you were to look at it as an IPL franchise, you know, you've got Eknath Shinde, Fadnavis and Ajit Pawar batting for the Mahayuti versus Uddhav Thackeray at 23% and Balasaheb Thorat only at, say, 1.5% and Sharad Pawar at 6%. So from an IPL lens, their franchise seems stronger than yours.
Yeah, in fact, Rahul, I have been extremely vocal on the subject. I've written about it. I have said it explicitly that for the MVA, it would make greater sense, even if they don't want to do so in a very explicit fashion, but to insinuate that Uddhav Thackeray is going to be their chief ministerial candidate. I wish they actually made that declaration. It would help them. And I'll tell you the reason why both the Mahayuti and the Mahavikas Aghadi will face a post-election problem. One is that the BJP is likely to be the largest party within the Mahayuti. I think that can be almost predicted. Now, whether they are in opposition or the ruling, that we'll figure out. Even in the Mahavikas Aghadi, I can tell you that unless the Congress doesn't do as well as expected, but if you go by the Lok Sabha trend, the Congress is likely to be the biggest contributor to the MVA. And yet, the chief ministerial candidate is likely to be a non-leader from the leading party in the alliance. So it is going to be a tricky terrain for both the alliances. My personal take, though, is that Sharad Pawar is going to be the unifier for the Mahavikas Aghadi. And while Nana Patole is aggressive and he's been all over the place very often, I think, kind of upsetting the apple cart itself, the fact remains that he's been good for the Congress. But he has to also recognize that you are working here in an alliance. And in the alliance, I think the messaging is going to be very critical in the coming time.
Okay.
But at the moment, it appears, Rahul, that with the nominations over, the seat distributions behind, I feel the tailwinds are still with the Mahavikas Aghadi. It's a question for them to really capitalize. There is anti-incumbency. people are angry. I can tell you that, don't ignore the whole Maratha reservation issue, which I think is really going to have a significant play and is linked to the agrarian distress. Marathas were once very, very settled. They were entrenched in Maharashtra and were happy with their economic status. Now they are feeling almost disenfranchised. So these will all have implications. I do feel MVA has to be, at the moment, smart. They are ahead. But if they can capitalize, they have a government. If they don't, it's going to be a close affair.
Okay, I want to now break this into the different regions of Maharashtra and look at this same question broken down into regions. Eknath Shinde has highest popularity in Konkan, where 37% of the respondents want him as chief minister. His popularity is lowest in the west, where only 23% want him, 25% in Vidarbha. So he's strong in Konkan, and in the north, where 33% want him. Those are Eknath Shinde's strong areas. Devinder Fadnavis's strong belt is Vidarbha at 14%. He is relatively weak in west, in north. Uddhav Thackeray, interestingly, is the one candidate who has the highest pan-region popularity. So he's kind of equal, like whatever his popularity is relatively similar, highest in the Konkan belt at 26%, but relatively in the same stacking in the other regions of Maharashtra as well. Ajit Pawar only in the west, where he shows up at 7%, very minimal popularity for chief minister in the other regions. Sharad Pawar again shows up in the strong belt of the NCP in the west at 13%. Aditya Thackeray really nowhere, but also his father is there, so it's unfair to look at him. If I look at Bala Sahib Thorat is very low in his popularity in most regions. He has some popularity in the Bombay region, 2.6%, and some popularity in Western Maharashtra, 2.4%, but otherwise the base is very low. Yashwant Deshmukh is with us. Now, it is interesting that Devinder Fadnavis is so far behind Eknath Shinde. One would have thought that Devinder Fadnavis, given that he's been chief minister in the past, is the number one face of the largest party, he may have had higher pan-Maharashtra popularity. People are quite okay with the current batting 11 for the Mahayuti.
Well, absolutely, Rahul. In fact, for me also, actually the surprise of the pack is Eknath Shinde, and his numbers have quite significantly moved up in the last few months, particularly after the Lok Sabha elections. There could be multiple reasons. Number one, that there is absolute clarity of the NDA leadership that they are standing behind Eknath Shinde as the chief ministerial face. That could be one of the major reasons that even the BJP supporters named him, a big chunk of them. Second chunk would be the relatively poor, in fact, very poor performance of the BJP in the Lok Sabha election, particularly in the Vidarbha region. And that is that might have taken the toll as far as Devendra Fadnavis ratings are concerned, because that is his home turf, and not doing good in Vidarbha and Marathwada is something which has probably taken the sheen away in that way. But largely speaking, because Eknath Shinde is the face of the Mahayuti, I think majority of the Mahayuti voters are rallying behind him. What is interesting here to observe is that, Rahul, that between these two, if you add those numbers, you are looking at somewhere around 40% of the MVA Mahayuti support base over there. However, when you look into the vote perspective of MVA, the overall leadership rankings do not count to totality of that 40%, which means, I agree, I was listening to what Sanjay was saying. Actually, there is a significant chunk of the Congress supporter who are not naming anybody. They are largely going into don't know, can't say, because they do not see a horse in the race that, okay, Uddhav Thackeray is fine, Sharad Pawar is fine, but we do not have a person to in this particular race. So,
how do you explain these two contrarian impulses, where when the question was asked, are you angry with the government, do you want change, 51.3% of the overall respondents want change. When the question is asked, do you like the development work done by this government in your area, 52% say they think it's good, not average, they think it's good. So the government has done good work, Rahul, and yet there is anger.
Contradiction. So that certainly means one thing, Rahul, that people in the terms of governance may or may not be angry with this government, But the thing is that they are upset, they want some change, there is a mood to change that has a lot to do, which goes outside the realm of governance. You look into the things, people get criticized this, not because of that lack of government is done, not because leadership is not respected, not because of anything else, but probably because of the jor-tor and the nature, the way the government was formed, and most importantly, the Ajit Pawar taking in the Ajit Pawar faction, which has not gone down well with the big number of cadre of the BJP particularly. So I think the problem of this government is not the governance or not the popularity of the chief minister. Problem of this government right now is probably an image problem, or the way they got into power, or the kind of politics they have been playing.
So there is unhappiness,
the kind of people
you're saying, but for reasons not to do with development and the work of the state government. Now, which of these factors do you think will significantly affect the upcoming elections in Maharashtra? And the framing of the questions is also very important, because the surveyors are not asking what's the number one issue for you. They're asking the voter, what do you think will be an issue for others in the poll? Let me take you through the responses to this question. Now, if we were to look at the responses to the question of which one do you think will impact results, Maratha reservation comes in at 23%. Redevelopment of slums, obviously largely in the Mumbai area, comes in at 10%. Performance of PM Modi is a factor for 12% of the respondents. Those are more likely to vote for the BJP and the Mahayuti, which is why they feel that's an important factor for them. Performance of the state government is 7%, economic condition is 6%. Sahil, if Maratha reservation is seen as being the number one issue in this sample, which people think will impact how others are voting, which way does this cut electorally? Is this likely to go against the Maharashtra state government and in favor of the Mahavikas Aghadi, or do you think the reality is far more complex than that?
Well, it is definitely complex than that, because if it is a pan-Maharashtra response, and if we are looking at it the very highest response, then there is a possibility that the average is the highest, if you compare it with all the region, because right now this issue is more burning issue within the Marathwada region, not so much in Western Maharashtra.
Let me pause you there and break this up into regions. So the same question, the same issue, let's break that into regions, because that will give you a clearer picture. So the Maratha reservation issue has highest resonance in Marathwada, where 38% think it will determine how people vote. The second highest is in Western Maharashtra at 32. Maratha reservation is not much of an issue in Bombay. Only 9% of the respondents think it is. It doesn't seem to be much of an issue in Vidarbha either. So it's a big issue in Marathwada. It's a big issue in the West. Issue of slums, that has some significance in Bombay. It also has relatively similar significance in the other regions. The performance of the Prime Minister is seen as being important in northern Maharashtra, is seen as being important in Bombay, is seen as being important in Konkan. Economic condition is seen as being important in Mumbai and in the Vidarbha region. So that being said, Sahil, now respond to the same question. Maratha reservation, highest resonance in Marathwada and then also in West.
Yeah, so it is quite expected, the way I started, that I was expecting that it will be the highest resonance in the regions like Marathwada, and the second highest is of course Western Maharashtra, and that's why the average is up by to the 23%. So of course it seems to be a very burning issue, and that is where it connects with the rural distress in Maharashtra, because the farming community is basically the Maratha community, and that is why it is being reflected like that. So somewhere that rural distress and the Maratha reservation is quite connected. Also, it is very interesting to see that the unemployment or the economic condition is kind of an issue within in Mumbai.
No, so answer the question: who does this agitation for Maratha reservation electorally? Who does it help and who does it hurt at the hustings?
Well, though there is a rider, because in Lok Sabha elections it worked completely against the Mahayuti. It helped Mahavikas Aghadi in Marathwada and in Western Maharashtra as well. But now the champion of the Maratha reservation agitation, Manoj Zarange Patil, he has asked his people that he will be putting up the candidates in Marathwada, Western Maharashtra and other regions. Now we'll have to wait and see whether this particular issue sides with the candidates declared by Manoj Zarange Patil, or they go by a larger alliance like Mahavikas Aghadi. That is yet to be seen. So this time the X factor will be the candidates put up by Manoj Zarange Patil, if at all he goes ahead and allow people to fight.
This is an important point that Sahil makes, Yashwant Deshmukh, because what your data doesn't capture is the role of these rebels who are put up, or rebels or even smaller parties, these independents, etc., who don't get fully captured. Now, even if there is anger on the issue of Maratha reservation against the state government, and some of these Marathas want to vote against the state government, they may choose to go with Zarange Patil's candidates and not with the Mahavikas Aghadi, or they could think, okay, this guy is a spoiler, there's no point in going to him, it's better to go to the MVA because that's where our vote matters. So those kind of factors are what trip the data over, because the data is genuine, but it's these little factors which are very difficult to capture in small sample size, which ultimately determine what happens on the seat.
Absolutely. And if you look into the vote share patterns of the last Lok Sabha elections, where the NDA was crushed out actually in every possible way you can think of, vote share gap between state level vote share gap was hardly 1% between the two groups. And if you play in the graphics of do you wish to change the government, are you angry with this government, you will see a very interesting factor in there. Just look at the number of people who do not wish to change. That is 41%. That means that number is confirmed, and that is going to go with the NDA vote. Now 4% which are upset but they do not wish to change, you can add, then you are looking at the NDA vote share at 45%. Now those who are angry and want to change, at 51%, if the rebels, those who are angry, but they are on the Maratha, and if Mr. Zarange Patil is putting up the candidates, and if they walk away with 5-6% votes, there is a huge problem out there for the Maharashtra, for the MVA, even though there is a mood to change. And to cap it all, what we are clearly looking at, the numbers of the chief ministerial candidate, what is telling us very clearly that the weakest link, perceived weakest link so far was Eknath Shinde by majority of the number crunchers and the editorial people alike. But it seems that he is coming up as one of the strongest point of the NDA right now. I mean, the transition.
You sent him in as a nice watchman. He's now become an opening batsman, and people quite seem to like the strokes that he's playing. So there's been a metamorphosis around Eknath Shinde. I want to, in the little time that I have left, look at the level of anti-incumbency against local MLAs. The question was, what is your opinion about the performance of the MLA in your region? Would you like to elect him again? Now here, I am happy and would like him to win once again, is the response of 51% of the respondents in this survey. Now that's quite high. Would like him to win again. 51% saying my MLA has done a good job. Shows how these local strongman MLAs in a state like Maharashtra, where there's a lot of money, even in rural areas, that matters. Now, not necessarily with all the poor people, but some people in those areas concentrate the wealth, and they kind of seem to like their MLAs. 51%. Definitely want someone else to win. 30%. 3 out of 10. Would like someone else to win. 11%. am unhappy but would like him to win again. Only 2%. 51%, Yashwant Deshmukh, how does this correspond with tracking data from other states? MLAs having 51% chance of winning, that seems quite high to me from the outside.
Yes, it is very high when compared to other states. But
why is that the case?
Maharashtra is also known for the local kshatraps and politics. Each and every district has, a very independent strongman, regardless of the party affiliation and everything. But nevertheless, 41% approximately saying they want to change. And if you look into the regional variation of these numbers, Rahul, you will realize this is where it is going to pinch the BJP, because this sentiment is maximum in Vidarbha and Marathwada. So these are the strongholds of the BJP, where BJP has taken the reverses in the Lok Sabha election and again renominating big number of their MLAs time over again. So I think that's the problem with the BJP, not with the problem with the Maharashtra Vikas Aghadi as far as the repeat
Okay.
viability of the candidates are concerned.
Let's now come to the next question. Which scheme of the current government do you think will attract voters in favor of this alliance? Now, this is a very important question because there's been so much talk of the Ladki Behan Yojana. Here, 45% think the Ladki Behan Yojana is the number one issue. Then the Maha Shetkari Yojana comes in at 10%, the other much lesser. Now, this is crucial. Sahil, 45% think the Ladki Yojana is the number one scheme which they think will, so it's not just the beneficiaries, even amongst non-beneficiaries, they think this scheme is the game changer.
Well, the kind of advertisement being done around the Ladki Bahin scheme is definitely going to make an impact, and that is what everybody is talking about ever since the Lok Sabha results have come, and in the subsequent budget in Maharashtra Assembly, the recent government announced the Ladli Bahin scheme with 1,500 rupees to a woman in poor families. So that's why everybody is definitely talking about it, and that is what is going to be the really interesting fact, whether Ladli Behna scheme or Ladki Bahin scheme is going to change the voter who had voted against the Mahayuti, or is it going to be the supporters who will strengthen and vote again to the Mahayuti, which we have to look at in this election. But normally what we have seen earlier, like in Madhya Pradesh, the scheme was in place for almost a year, and that's why it could yield a result to Shivraj Singh Chauhan, whereas in Maharashtra, it was implemented only after.
Does that make a difference, Manisha Priyam? How many months you've been getting this bounty? In Maharashtra, it's been there just for a few months. Shivraj Singh Chauhan had it for longer. Or do you think once you get used to that money, once you taste the money, you're quite happy ki theek hai, we've tasted it in once, baad mein bhi to aayega hi. What's the problem?
No, I don't think it matters that they've got it for longer or for less type of thing. What matters is the perception of women on the trustworthiness of whether the scheme is likely to be continued or not. And if they believe, I mean, the combination of confidence in Shinde as the chief minister plus the transfers having happened in a transparent sort of way for a couple of months, we don't know, but that can be adequate to tilt women voters should they think that this trumps all their other issues that they may have. Now, in the case of Madhya Pradesh also, the last scheme of cash transfers happened very much at the last moment, and on the ground we saw that only 1 or 2 transfers had happened at the time that the state went to elections, but even then it was very important. In West Bengal, for example, the Lakki Bhandar scheme, the Roopshri and Chai Bagan women worker schemes, all of them have had very important impact.
No, but what also is the reality now, Yashwant Deshmukh, is that this is now equalized across parties. So it's not just the Mahayuti which is promising this. Even the Mahavikas Agadi says, okay, we will give you the same. So then does it matter to the voter that this is the party that's promising it? Because that's a promise that everyone's making to the voter.
Well, the fact is that, Rahul, these kind of schemes can be rolled out but can never be taken back.
Sure.
That's the problem or good thing about these schemes. So people are very clear, if it is being rolled out, everybody has to continue with them. So these things do matter, but yeah, as you said, everybody's gonna play one-upmanship, but there would be a novelty factor for sure. There would be something which, like, who has started it. Anybody who has started it will be taking a bit of credit, at least in the round one. So everything is like, coming up as a great equalizer, great leveler.
Okay. So I now want to come to the last question in this poll. Do you think the BJP will perform better if it snaps ties with Ajit Pawar's NCP? Now here, 49% of the respondents say yes, hatao isko. 36% say no, mat hatao. Now that is interesting because while this question is now too late, so it's just a rhetorical question, respondents think that Ajit Pawar's NCP is the weak link. But frankly now nothing can be done. It was Yashwant Deshmukh in the Lok Sabha elections, the lack of an equilibrium between the Ajit Pawar faction and the BJP, which kind of irked a lot of the NDA voters. a lot of NDA voters particularly seem to think that the NDA BJP would be better off without Ajit Pawar.
Absolutely. A lot of people think that they are seen in the context. Ajit Pawar is not a political liability. Ajit Pawar is a political liability in the NDA camp. He is a political asset in MBA camp. I think there is a lot of chemical locha because of that. And this is a significant thing to understand. It might not be that easy to call it off in that way, but certainly it did not go down well with the cadre of the BJP largely.
Okay, Sanjay Jha, you know, you're a cricket fan yourself. If this is the commentary and if this is the state of play at the end of the day, what it would suggest to all parties as they head into the Diwali break is that you have a chance. You know, this data is giving everybody a chance. Ki mehnat karo, jam ke karo, you all have an. So it's not as if the data is tending in any one direction, which basically means there are some indications which tell you the mood of the voter, but it basically means that this is game on in Maharashtra.
Absolutely, and I'm going to respond to you with a cricket analogy. I think, you can't work in Indian elections by taking one approach and saying that cookie-cutter method is going to work all the time. India against New Zealand, for example, Rahul, you and I follow cricket closely, tried the baseball approach. It didn't quite work. And you have had New Zealand thumping us on a home turf. So I think for whichever MVA or the Mahayuti, I think Yashwant is absolutely right. The game is up in the air. However, the MVA seems to be having more tailwinds in its favor. The question is, can it consolidate on that opportunity? If 51% people saying they want to change, that possibly tells you the mood across the state. But then, as you rightly said at the beginning, Maharashtra is several regions within a state. And therefore, that dynamic is going to play out. On the Maratha vote, please remember, 33% of the voters in Maharashtra are basically Marathas. And they're not just in Marathwada, they're spread across the state. So the impact in 150 or 160 constituencies where they play a meaningful impact on the votes is going to be significant.
Okay, I'll leave it over there. We've had a high-level conversation. I think the data shaped the discussion. I'm thankful to Yashwant and his team for that. This is where we wrap up the political stock exchange for Maharashtra. The nominations are over. This is now, a very truncated campaign. It's also a campaign which has lots of holidays. There's Deepavali, then there is Chhath Puja, and then there is just the power play, just a few days, and we've seen in the past few elections, the last few days are crucial because they have played an important role in turning the direction of the election. So this is no longer Test cricket style politics. This is T20 style politics. Sanjay Jha mentioned baseball, but that's what it is. You go, you hit hard, you hope you connect, you hope you cross the line. If you don't, it looks terrible if you manage to get out in the end. We'll keep tracking. We're not telling you who's winning, who's losing. We'll tell you what's happening in the match.